presentation that we've got today, I'm hoping will be quite interactive, and I'm really excited about this opportunity. The topic for today is best practices, international activities in schools of social work. Now, as some of you know, we have had an international interest group here at the School of Social Work for quite a few years. But it started off as people kind of doing their own thing and then getting together and talking about it. Then we got more planful. We developed certain activities that we wanted to do at the school, like this monthly luncheon series to expose people to different international things going on. Well, that kind of morphed into our strategic plan at the School of Social Work, where international is one of our 4 core components. So we have quite a few exciting international things that we're doing here at the school. But it also occurred to us that we should take a look and see what some other schools of social work around the country are doing. And that's what brings us to our presentation today. The presenters, and I'm standing right in front of them, Dieuveut, Gaity, and Stephanie Sacco, have been putting a lot of work into looking at what other schools are doing, especially Dieuveut. He did a lot of research on this, and Stephanie has helped him kind of polish this up and present it to you today. So we get a glimpse of some best practices, what other schools are doing. It could stimulate our own thinking, some things that we might want to replicate here, some things that we might want to stay away from. But anyway, it's food for thought for us. So I'm going to step aside and let them present to us about what's happening other places, and then we can get into a discussion about what we might want to do here. Okay.
All right, so we're standing in this general area because we're recording, and otherwise there's no visual of our faces. So just like wave if you can't hear us or if you are really frustrated by the lighting. Essentially, we're just talking about what Dr. Weaver introduced. So, essentially, to summarize again what she said, the goals for today's presentation are that we're just going to review the relevant strategic planning goals. There are 3. They're on the PowerPoint, and then also attached in the handout is the strategic plan and kind of a more detailed breakdown, which we're going to kind of skim over, but we might want to refer to it later on when we have our discussion. Dieuveut is going to do some highlights of the data that he collected. We'll talk a little bit about his data collection process as far as what other schools are doing, and kind of go over a few of the ideas that seem the most interesting to us. And then open it up to group conversation. So we want to talk about maybe if any of these ideas seem interesting to us to implement, or if we have our own, and if possible, get into talking about next steps. So just to review strategic planning, there were 3 main components to the international aspect of our strategic plan. The first was the goal of internationalizing the School of Social Work. One way that we're working on that, just so you guys that aren't involved with it can kind of know what we're already doing, is that Dieuveut was very involved with a foundational assessment, looking at the curricula of all of the different courses, as well as some of the research, different projects that are already being done in the school to see on what level are we incorporating a global perspective to our work. And also the luncheons that we do every month here, and we always have an annual film festival that we work on. And you can see that kind of laid out here. The second was raising the visibility of the school of social work. That goal kind of ties into wanting to build our connections with other schools of social work nationally and internationally, as well as with other organizations that are doing work that's relevant to the School of Social Work's interests here. And that would involve attending more conferences, increasing our collaborations and exchanges with scholars and other programs, as well as social media. And then the third aspect of the strategic plan was offering strong support for newcomer students. If you don't know, newcomer students for us can kind of define as just people that are foreign born. So they might be international students. They might not qualify as international students. If you have any questions, you can ask Marie because she did the whole presentation about it. So it could be, people that are refugee students, people that came here as immigrants, people that were dual citizens, maybe were born in another country, or somehow grew up in a culture that's just not necessarily what we see present here in the School of Social Work, more mainstream. So what we worked on is we have a monthly newcomer support group that we provide. Marie sort of got started with a guide for people that are newcomers to the school to help them get acclimated. And we do an annual assessment of newcomer students to get a gauge on what their needs and interests are in the school. So, take it to you.
I started the data collection process for this project with reviewing 153 websites of different universities in the United States. I tried to expand it to Canada, and some was like French, and it wasn't too relevant. And out of the 153 websites that I reviewed their international activities, 62 of the schools had relevant content that I think, like subjectively, they will be helpful for the School of Social Work University program. And out of the 62 universities that I found relevant content, international activities content, developed 75 pages of data, information from all the 60 schools. And it was too big, so we had to summarize it to a 21-page summary. And in that 21-page summary, we had information about activities, class, curricula, and everything. So we had a classification of how we collect the information, what order we arrange them. It starts from curricula, certificates, field placement, lectures, travel grants, extracurricular activities, collaborations, newcomer support. All the 153 schools we reviewed, and all the 62 that have relevant, they are doing all that. Curriculum, they develop global curriculum, extracurricular activities, and related to international activities, visiting scholar, which was the main point, and travel grant, which was very important when I reviewed these elements. So we are going to present a few of these categories, which is specialization, certificate programs, study abroad exchange, and extracurricular activities. And related to what we found out of the 62. But we're going to make it short, that's why we're not presenting all the categories. We're going to present a few categories. As a curriculum, I think Boston University had one of the, according to me, one of the most interesting programs. I have to say that because I was looking at it and said, oh, that's interesting, you didn't have that. So that's let me put it in as number one. So Boston University have one of the Bridge program, which is building refugee and immigrant degrees for graduate education. It's a very interesting program where they provide transition, like as a transitional bridge for refugee students who are going to get admitted in the School of Social Work, and taught them different level of ways of the world of graduate level of education. And they had that in the 1990s. They started with something called the ITP, which is the Refugee and Immigrant Training Program. So they've been doing that for a long time. They have this tradition of it. They have 4 different levels, which is the orientation, where they try to start from December to February and introduce the students, the newcomer student, to the American culture, the expectation of graduate school of social work, what they have to expect, and how the world of education and school of social work work. And they have the preparation, which is the pre-matriculation section, where they actually help the transition from understanding the American culture to a real transition to school and class and syllabi in academia world. And then they also help them with different workshops, reading, proofreading, and writing, so they can be more comfortable with the world of education they are entering, because they're from a different international background or different country. And the third aspect, which is the Master of Social Work, where when they are leaving the Bridge program, they are going actually to class. So the Bridge have to secure their financial support. Also, they help them, still mentoring them while they're in class because they leave the bridge. So, and then they help them to remain in contact with the bridge faculty or members in order to provide assistance to further members. And then the last one, which is the career development, it's help them develop a career planning and employment process in the future. So the bridge remain in contact with them from when they start and to matriculate for class, and then to help them for future career development. That's the bridge program in a little snippet. And the second university, which is Columbia University, they have a similar program called International Student Program, which is called ISP. It's a 5-term program, and they offer at 2 different levels. The orientation week, they provide English language proficiency exam, and from that they will know if there's refugee or immigrant or asylum, they need extra support for English when they're going to enter class in the regular semester. And they have in the summer language course, the student that need that extra support, they design a 6-week summer course for them in English proficiency, and they call it the English for Professional Purpose, especially for social work. In the fall term, that's specifically help them to understand the social welfare system of the United States before they start their internship. They don't have any internship during the fall semester, it starts in the spring, because they are helping the refugee, the newcomer student about the social welfare system in the United States, and help them to take different classes that's going to help them in the field placement. It specifically help them with the transition before they go in field practice. And the third university, which is the University of Michigan, they are one of the, I remember one time there was a discussion with a few colleagues about if we have to call our professor, if we have to call international or global. University of Michigan is one of the universities that changed from the international concept to more global concept. Everything they are doing is about global, because international can be, there is this dichotomy between international and domestic. So they make it global and call it, they make it more, broaden up the activities they are doing. So they have a specific office of global studies in their School of Social Work, and they provide global activity scholars program, which is to help the newcomers about different degrees. They can call it specialization, specifically it's 1 to 6 elective credits. They can take different classes from different departments in their university, in the University of Michigan, in order that going to boost their degrees in social work and help them have a specialty, if I can call it like that, a specialization in global, international global studies. And the second one they're doing, we call the global special studies. It offered the student the opportunity and to stay connected with individuals, with international background communities and organizations that provide international services in terms of field placement. And the third one, which is a certificate in global social work, it's help definitely providing the opportunity to engage in specialized graduate study or social work practice in global arena. And it also provide them the opportunity to take specialized course and global content from the school and outside as well, whether it's abroad or in the United States. And one of the things they provide is a funding resource. They provide a certain amount of money to any professors or students who are interested in doing research with that international base, whether it's here or they travel to conference. They have funding for that specific opportunities to implement more international research.
That's right. So this is super brief. We're not going to go through this whole list, and it could have been much longer. Just kind of wanted to include, and like Dieuveut said, there were so many different things that he found in his research, but I just thought it was interesting and important to highlight. There are so many different ways that schools of social work are talking about global or international study. And there are lots of different ways that students are getting to specialize or obtain certificates that are relevant to that while they're pursuing their master's in social work. Some schools just had a couple different classes, and then there were a lot, like you can see here, that had certificates as well as specializations. And that's that. As far as study abroad and exchange, I know I'm glad that Laura was here, just in case. We are ever expanding as far as building our connections, inviting scholars to come visit and doing exchanges with them. But this was, again, kind of just a very, brainstormy list of some different schools that are also doing different programs, whether it's that they're regularly receiving exchange students from schools in other countries and they have that kind of relationship established. Some of them have, like Southern California, the Visiting Scholars Program, again, kind of a setup, more purposeful way of approaching it. And one other one that I thought was worth mentioning out loud was this NYU's Shanghai, New York. They have a 2-year master's program where you must be bilingual and you go 1 year in Shanghai and 1 year in New York City with the school in Shanghai. A lot of schools had grants for travel for students, which was interesting, as well as some different awards and scholarships, as well as for continuing education for alumni. And again, very brief, just for brainstorming purposes, because we're getting really close to conversation time. Just wanted to mention some different ideas about extracurriculars. There are a lot of things going on at other schools. We have some things going on as well. But we just kind of wanted to throw in there some different ideas that other schools are doing. We could talk more about them in conversation if it comes up. I know we've got a lot of material to talk about. So those are just kind of on here. We can, talk more about them in conversation. And now it's talking time, so you guys don't have to listen to us anymore. Essentially, we just kind of wanted to highlight some of the things that we want to take into consideration when we're talking, and I feel like we're all professionals, so I don't have to organize it too much, but if anybody wants to get started, friendly reminders, just consider the resources that we do have, and some people are more aware of that than others, but this is just brainstorming, so we don't have to be too practical. Just talking about what we think is the most important for the school, and maybe even getting into some next steps if we get that far.
I'd like to, if we could go back to the previous slide, just the two at University of Michigan. One day as a foreigner, and then particularly, what's the prosperity service? What's like the volunteer part? What's
Sure.
the other?
Okay, and this is where, I didn't put the website on here, but, oh, no, I did. Yep.
Michigan.
Yeah, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to give you the whole shebang. So we have links to the 3 main schools, and we can just look right at it. The one day is
One day as a foreigner is particular activities they are doing after they went abroad to either field placement or conference. They are presenting their research and with short narrative, which is was very catchy when I saw it, and I said, wow. And they took picture, they help the audience to understand what kind of work they were doing there and what kind of experience they have. So I think that's what One Day as a Foreigner was.
Sure. So, we can just check it out here. Volunteers for Prosperity Service Incentive Program. Funding available to students who partner with cross-cultural solutions for their global social work experience. So the website was, intense. There's so much information here. But it was just focusing on having students going out into the world and really integrating what they were learning in the classroom and applying it to people and populations that were in need. So it's pretty intense. Obviously, there's a lot of funding that they have. It's a bigger school, but I think it's pretty interesting to see what some of these other schools are doing to build those connections and really get students out into the world with a global perspective in mind.
Stephanie,
Yeah.
There is some criticism about those third-party providers, they call them cross-cultural solutions.
Yeah.
But actually, the field director at Michigan is part of the consortium that I belong to of field directors. And I know they've had good success with that program, but the university here has encouraged partnering with third-party providers in that way.
Good to know. Very cool. Not cool, but And so also we have access to the websites for those larger programs that Dieuveut was talking about in case you guys want more details or kind of want to play around. It's really informal, so feel free to ad lib. Yeah.
One thing that stuck out to me, the Shanghai, New York program, I was looking into Fulbright scholarships, and I don't know what UV's affiliation with Fulbright is or what opportunities there are, but as a 2-year master's student, it seems kind of impossible to be able to spend a year abroad. So potentially if there were opportunities to take classes and, fulfill your master's class requirements while also getting the opportunity to do policy level or some sort of international involvement, I think that would be a really good opportunity.
Also, on Fulbright, you can do post-grad too. You can do post-MSW applications for that.
I just want to speak to the issue of Fulbright because there's a lot of opportunities for Fulbright at UB. A lot of them are based in global gender studies and other departments that have identified linkages internationally. Typically what you have to do is you have to have somebody on the other side in the other country who's willing to supervise you. And that I think is part of the challenge, at least for us, because of the coursework that you're involved in. And given that commitment, I mean, obviously there's great funding involved in it, but that's the challenge because you're doing coursework here, so it's online. And you've got your field placement. And you've got study under supervision with somebody there. And you're paying for the whole thing yourself. So, I mean, you've got some money from Fulbright, but Fulbright is not going to cover your tuition here. It's going to cover your living expenses there. So that makes it difficult to have Fulbright, all those things coming together as a master's student. We have had graduates of our program who've done Fulbrights. And so that's why I'm familiar enough with it, because I've written them letters of recommendation and helped them connect to other universities and identify potential projects.
The other thing that you could do, though, as a student is work with Dana or to do an academic plan and take a break from the program. Maybe do your foundation year and then go abroad and then come back to complete. So I'm pretty sure that would be possible.
Yeah. The other thing is for international placements, our dean provides $1,000, which is a scholarship off your tuition. And so they're sufficient, and it's usually in the spring of your advanced year, so you've got most of your requirements done. And there's sufficient numbers of online courses that if you are credit deficient at all when you go, you're able to do that. The challenge, of course, is that you're paying your own expenses for the most part in that other country. But a lot of times, the cost of living in those countries, we're not talking about Ireland or anywhere in the EU, but other countries, it certainly is very doable. You can live on about $250 a month, which you would never be able to do in the United States.
I'm sorry, what's the $250 a month?
It would cover all of your living expenses, your board, your food, and lodging and transportation very often, depending on where you were.
I just wanted to share my experience of working with Laura and a student who was placed in India last year or 2 years back. What I really liked about it was how we worked with our partners to ensure that the work and plan for work. So it was not like poverty tourism. She was going there, contributing, working over there, contributing significantly to the work that was going on there. We identified the needs of the agency over there in the university, and so there was a concrete plan of action of study for her, and then there was she did a comparison between the systems over here, and I think the learning outcomes were really concrete. So that was a really good experience at our school that I had.
Yeah, our goal here when we place students abroad is always that the work will be meaningful and that they're making a contribution to the agency. And some of the criticism about those third parties is that the students aren't integrated into the local communities. They're sort of isolated in groups of American students, not doing meaningful work.
And even in terms of research, some of the feedback that I have got from colleagues in India is that researchers from the West, they come, they collect data, and they go away and you're from them. And that's something really to keep in mind when you're doing international those social work and what really does it mean that you're preparing students for more awareness than working with populations of interest in their home countries, or whether we are looking at students or preparing students for preparing for international kind of in social work or a combination of these. I think that's something really to think about when I'm looking at the programs across the US.
Does anybody have any thoughts about some of the newcomer support services? I know we have a few newcomers in Nagoya in the room, and a lot of faculty and staff that are really interested in that. Yeah.
I have a question. Excuse me. Is that open to just social work students, or is it available to newcomers from other schools and projects across the Eastern?
Excellent question. I'm going to look right at Dr. Lee.
That is an excellent question that has come up again and again, and we're trying to be attentive to it, and obviously we need to be even more attentive. And I'm going to back up a little bit to tell you how we got to where we are. I've been teaching here since '93, and I've watched a lot of the students that come into our programs. I've always taught multicultural issues in social work, responding to refugees and immigrants, classes that would tend to draw newcomer students. So I would see some of these folks in my classes with no support, little preparation. And so based on what I just happened to see as a faculty member, and also what I started to see when I was on the admissions committee, some of the folks that were applying to our program with really some amazing backgrounds in like the international aid groups and things like that. But it was really a mixed bag. There was excitement about seeing these folks that were here or could come here, but also recognizing that they were often struggling. So out of that, I got connected with Nurit, and she put a lot of work along with Oksu Kim. I don't think I see her in the room, but folks put effort into a needs assessment. Talk to some of the folks who are here and see what services we could develop. Out of that, we developed a newcomer support group, modeled after our other support groups that we have here at the school, because we have support for students of color, we have support for parenting students, we have support for veteran students. Let's have something for these newcomer students who qualified for no support whatsoever at the university level if they had come as refugees or immigrants. So we developed that. That group has run for a couple of years. We've also done some one-on-one work. When I say we, I always mean the people that I delegate this to, particularly Nurit did a lot of that, and now Stephanie and Dieuveut. The question has come up, can we open that up to non-social work students? I think in a lot of ways that's a really exciting opportunity that we could nurture all kinds of newcomer students. And when I see stuff like the Bridge program, I got excited about that too, really. And that nurtures students a lot more than anything that we have been able to do so far. I think there's a lot of potential. But it comes down to resources and how much can we really put into supporting students. I would love to say we can support everybody. Let's have social work as the hub within our university supporting these newcomer students. I think one of the things that I would hope to see coming out of today's discussion is for me to get a better sense of where we stand. Is it just me that's excited about this? And if so, I can go to bat and say, let's open this up to other students and try and put resources behind it. But I don't know how much that's just me. I want to take other people's pulse and see, are we excited about supporting other newcomer students? Because I think a lot of the excitement initially goes towards sending the students that are already here to opportunities abroad, which is good. But we can't start off doing all things for all people. So as we have our discussion, I'm really listening to see if maybe you and I are the only ones excited about supporting the newcomer students. I look at Buffalo. Walk around the west side of Buffalo. Look at all of the newcomer folks in our communities. And a bunch of them find their way to our school and our university with very little support or help. They just make it. I've had students just literally show up in my classes who weren't even officially UB students, and that's a really tricky situation to handle. Because I think if we open the door, the demand is there. Right now, with the newcomer student support group, and we have the facilitators for the group here, I have said, yeah, let's give it a try and have some other students come in. And it's not only providing a service to other students at the university, it's infusing energy into our School of Social Work and our social work students. So it could be a win-win situation. But if this is going to be more than a couple students, if we're going to open the doors, if you're going to publicize this in like your newsletter or through ISSS newsletter, through these various services, I need to have the resources to back it up.
One avenue, I have a comment towards that, and I have two comments, and I have to do for everything, but one avenue that we might consider bringing this up is at the CISP meetings. They're currently working on how to create better programming for international students. And I think this portion of the international student population is the portion that's not being addressed. And so that might be, I know Luke's was on that committee, so potentially bringing that up then.
I'm sorry, could you restate what committee this is?
CISP, the Council for Internationals, I can't remember the acronym stands
Okay.
for. CISP, John Wood and Stephen Dunnick are leading that.
And that's a good avenue. It's just in the experience that we've had here, the vast majority of social work students don't qualify as international students.
Right, no, that's what my meaning is, that's the population that's not being addressed. So if we bring it to the table there, that might just bring some discussion around that. The other thing is, I'm not sure, it's definitely not UB, and there are some SUNY schools that do have a Master's International program through the Peace Corps. Might be something to look into as a potential program to start at UB, not only in social work, hopefully in other schools and departments across the university. Provides a way to do not only international placement, but also classes here at the university. And then my final comment is I'm from the School of Public Health and Health Professions, so I've met with some of the dual degree students here. And one thing that we're currently working on is a certificate advanced certificate in global health that would be open to anyone in a graduate degree program, including social work. So if they're interested in particularly global health work, they would take some core courses as well as some elective courses, all related to the global health field. And it's very open-ended, very much structured, so students can build the program around what their focus and interest is. So we're currently in the creation phase of that, and we'll be turning that in hopefully in December, January time period.
That's great. Is that a university program or a student level certificate?
So it'd be student levels.
Wow. The other SUNY certificate that I know about, the Canadian study, what is it called?
Canadian Studies
Yeah.
Certificate Program, yeah.
I can't think of the full name of it. Students can use a field placement towards
Yep,
that, so
yep.
potentially a
Similar.
7-credit international placement could be used towards an advanced certificate, so that's exciting.
So we'll keep that in the know for you all as we get to that information. But I have to go. I just wanted to give my comments.
Thank you.
Sort of a brainstorm I've been having as we've been talking is, Hillary, you mentioned resources and being able to actually handle the possible demand. There might be an opportunity to sort of tap into the skills and the experiences of the students themselves. And as part of an orientation and involvement in the group, and part of connecting to the social work, education, and group management is training newcomers as they advance through the program in facilitating these groups. And so creating, it'll be kind of a multi-level program, and they would need to be supervised, but having sort of the students sort of take the leadership role in connecting with the broader newcomer student populations on campus and taking the lead. So that would take some of the pressure off of sort of the school's administration and also provide kind of a learning experience and a support experience for the newcomers.
And we did a little bit of that in a very unplanned sort of way when I had a gap where I had no GAs, because that's who has staffed most of our efforts. It's GAs here at the School of Social Work. And there was 6 or 8 weeks when I had no one. But it was students who had been in the newcomer group last year that kind of rose to the occasion and helped keep us above water a little bit.
I think we need to be a little bit cautious to just open up the newcomer support group to, other parts of the university, because of there are some common need among newcomer students in general, but some needs are very specific to school or department, like social work. I think that the biggest issue among the newcomer student in social work is field, finding field and how to work with field. So that I think that there is some need to keep newcomer support group only for social work students, and then maybe maybe one big group for newcomer students in general, but also some a group or department specific support group, because I was a newcomer student myself, and I organized some the International Women Student organization when I was a MSW student. And there are certain issues I couldn't, deal with in that one. I need help from my, social work, international student. So I went to the both group. So I think, we need to be very cautious about just opening up, because, maybe we can have a common workshop about the academic integrity issue in the United States, but there are many other issues that the common group cannot handle.
You're afraid that it kind of dilutes what the purpose would be of the code.
I totally agree, because there is some sense of community in the support group of social work, and opening it up will harm this sense in some level. Now, I'm not saying we cannot do some special workshops, some big events maybe going out, but this little space of coming and brainstorming regarding classes, regarding field, regarding how to handle the social work curriculum is very specific. And I think that's the part of the support that we want to have here to the group.
I just had a thought,
because I get to brainstorm too, that it would be interesting if there was, a second year newcomer student that wanted to do that as their field placement.
We could absolutely talk about a creative project or program like that. Absolutely. We just need someone to supervise. But we could do that.
Well, we must have solved all the problems because it's quiet. Ooh, we don't have to see that yet.
It's on the handout.
Oh, yeah, but it's a gift. Okay, we'll show it.
I'd like to hear from students who are here about the question posed on what are the current strengths and weaknesses in the School of Social Work vis-a-vis internationalizing, or how international is the school? I mean, do you get this in your courses? Is it, oh yeah, absolutely, every professor addresses some aspect of, a population or a problem that is outside the U.S.?
I guess I'd like to jump on that also and ask about, obviously several of you are dual degree students. And so how familiar are you with the fact that we offer international field placements? And so I have an opportunity, I spoke to a student who was a dual degree MPH, MSW about working at a clinic in a rural area in Tanzania. She wanted to go some other place. Oh, bummer. But, so in that sense too, with content in courses, but also opportunities. You guys need placements. You would be eligible for that money. Yeah.
I'll say, I'm pretty sure you're talking about me.
Okay.
But I'll say I just met with Jessica pretty recently, and one thing that the School of Public Health, I would say just from being in both departments, I think they're a little more friendly in that way. Mm-hmm. I'm actually working a lot more with them than I am with the School of Social Work because they have a global health fieldwork scholarship. That's, I think, $3,500 or $2,500. So if I get it, it'll not only cover my travel and everything, my housing, but it's going to cover a research project that I can do in the community when I go to the Dominican Republic next year. So, it's nice that the dean gives us $1,000 as well.
But it's not as much as what you
and
get.
opportunities for research is not just like, I want the money for myself. It's like, it's great that I'm going to have money to do something in the community.
Yes, it's 725 scholarship.
Travis is getting those.
Oh, that's another scholarship that he's getting.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll say that, because like in my coursework, I haven't really gotten much international policy. And then when I went international over the summer, when I first got there, wasn't really understanding how social policy would work outside of the U.S. and how drastically different it was in other places. So that actually was what got me more interested in international social work. And then I looked into, only after that experience did I start to notice that there were opportunities, but they still seemed fairly limited.
Yeah, I would say that there are opportunities around the School of Social Work, but they're just that, they're special opportunities, and there isn't, at least in my experience, there hasn't been any kind of strong integration into the courses, which, I get that we're already trying to cover almost too much in the courses as it is, and to try to integrate more would definitely be a challenge, but it's...
Yeah, I feel like the opportunities are there. It just depends on the student and what path they want to go. So if you want to go in the military path, I'm going to choose that. But as far as our coursework goes, and we take interventions, we take theories, we take research, but we don't, unless you opt to, our first semester curriculum release is laid out for us already. So it goes more into the student of, I want to take multicultural, I want to take the Russian university. So I think it's more student-based. They are there. We do discuss them in things like policy. We talk about like national studies and international, but it's more based on like, the student, one student.
I agree, and I think
there are some professors who, it seems like from my experience, are very passionate about international issues and incorporate that more into their curriculum, where other teachers, if it's not their research interest or their passion, they might not incorporate it as much. And as Jake was saying, I sought out teachers where that was one of their research interests, because that was one of my interests. But I think that it is something that if you don't know where to look or you're not aware of the opportunities, it's hard to find.
Could I ask a point of clarification? Because I'm not in the School of Social Work. Let me see how to put it. Does every student who has an international field placement have to take some sort of prerequisite in, like, international comparative social policy or something like that, or international comparative social work? Does such a class exist, and would that? No. Okay.
That's exactly what international social work, which is a course that's offered once a year, so every spring semester.
But that's not required.
It's not a
That's not required of students.
And it's the same semester that the student is abroad.
Oh, I guess where's your associate dean?
Yeah, that's you. Okay.
No, it's not me. Hillary. I mean, is that something that might facilitate some of the problems that you can experience, so that it's not.
That's the idea. And students who are going abroad, they're advised around that. And the person who teaches international social work has talked about teaching it in both semesters or online in semester 2. So it's been talked about, but it is largely dependent, I think, on the faculty member's willingness, whether or not that course is offered and when it's offered.
Something that I found just in my experience my first year is that a lot of people come into the School of Social Work with expectations for what they're going to be doing, and that may be different by the end of the first year, but we're not necessarily looking for new opportunities and new ideas. We find them as we go. So if we're thinking of sort of broadening the possibility, part of where that might need to happen is in recruitment and recruiting students who are interested in international issues to so that they, if that's what they're interested in, they can start right away, as opposed to finishing your first foundational year and it's like, well, I'm kind of interested in this, but I've missed half the deadlines for, or I've already made plans for life and I won't be able to take these opportunities. So thinking before students get here might be a way to look into it.
Sure. So, I taught the international social work class last semester. And it was interesting to see what some of the MSW students are saying. Or there's a disconnect between the human rights and social development language, it seems, and what MSW students are learning in class. And so they had to work really hard to bring it together and to think about social development as not just relevant for developing countries, but also to the population over here, and to think about women's rights, not just in terms of, so kind of expanding their horizon. But what I also realized was that one semester was just an introductory course, and that's just one off, and there needs to be a lot more, maybe a follow-up, maybe add an additional courses and more integration. So these are not just concepts that are not relevant to the American population or to their clients or to themselves. That's one bit of teaching one course, teaching the course one time.
That was something I kind of wondered about in your presentation. So as a new faculty member, I'm always kind of thinking of, what resources are there out there for this? And I sometimes think, in the back of my mind, I'd like to incorporate more of an international perspective, but I'm not always sure how to in the particular courses I teach. I wonder if you saw any resources for, and I don't know if that would even be on websites or in the types of places you're looking, but are there resources for how do we do a better job, not only in a special elective class like the one you're talking about, but in our core classes or in a variety of topics? Because I think there's that potential to bring in more of that perspective probably in a number of social work classes, but some of us probably are interested in that but don't always know how to do it. And so maybe other schools have addressed that. Maybe there are resources out there for that, but I don't really know.
If you don't have, I was just gonna say, you know what? I don't have an answer for you, but I think kind of coming out of this, I've started to, like, with permission, reach out to some schools and ask them some questions, because there's a few different things that we're already kind of talking about. Another issue that we don't need to get into, but I'll mention, is just trying to figure out, like, how to keep track of what's going on in the school and what's going on in other departments that we can tie into. You know, there's no way of knowing unless you ask. So certainly as follow-up, and that's what this is all about, I could contact schools and see what they think and what they're doing.
And I think CSWE does have some
Yeah,
materials. They do too. So they might be a little dated, but I know they had like a compendium of model syllabi and different courses to integrate on various things, from international to disabilities to all sorts of stuff.
And I'm sure GAs would just love to, you know, research. So.
So it sounds like we have a broad range of priorities, different interests in terms of international. Is there a sense of what you would consider to be the most pressing issue that our schools should be attentive to in terms of international? Is it more support for students going elsewhere? Is it more support for the international and newcomer students that are here? Is it more on the curriculum side? Is it more on the field placement side? What is our priority? Where do we start?
My instinct is that it's at the curriculum level, and what I was saying about integration, because that will touch every student's education, as opposed to focus, and it's important to provide the direct services and the supports for students going abroad and students coming, but if there's more of an integration across the curriculum as a whole, everybody will encounter that, and it will affect everyone, and it will create a culture where we're more open and understand, not to say we're not open, but we're more aware and understanding of the issues and how it relates globally and locally.
Adding to that, the same, in a different level, of course, but the same way we mentioned drama in every class, one of the classes, one of the 15 weeks sessions can mention half of the time the international context in this subject, because there is a world out there, and not always in the class people are aware that things happen differently in different subjects, like you asked, for example. I'm sure that every good international social work full curriculum, we can adapt from that to different classes that we give, just raise that awareness. And another thing that I would think is that sometime in the first semester, and I have no idea how to do it, I've been struggling for a while, not in the orientation, but sometimes during or by the end of the first semester of the MSW program, somehow to expose people to the options in the school so they can be better prepared for the future, for the options of going to field placement somewhere else next year. Like you said, people have to plan for these things. And some people really have no idea that they exist. So somewhere by the end, like now, have some session that will expose the students to what is the path that they can take from now, because in the beginning it's too much.
For field placement?
In general, what are the options? We have options here for international placements. We have options for international social work. We have options for veterans.
Here's the faculty that you can go to if.
Yeah, a little bit like late orientation after the first semester.
I think that's a really great idea, and that would help to hit on a lot of things, not just with international.
Yes.
Now, I know that when I started last year, it was the first year that they had not required a foundation year seminar, and I don't know the details of this, but I was told that it previously existed, and then starting with my class last year, we weren't required to take it, it was being revamped, and might come back in the future. That might, if that does come back, that might be a place to address some of these issues, is having sort of at least a one semester, one credit sort of orientation to everything.
Okay, so one of the ways of integrating it into the curriculum for each course would be have at least a section on international, the issue as it relates to populations. Yeah. The other way I think which would be more integrative is to look at literature from other parts of the country on a particular issue like disability or veterans, or working with veterans or working with children, and look at the work that's being done around in the scholarship from around the world, and that would be, I think, a much better way to integrate and really help students become informed social workers.
Just one comment. I do that in my policy class, but I have for about 10 different types of policies. And I have the students focus in comparing US with, and it's usually the EU, because they don't have content on how things operate on other continents outside of the European continent. And there's a concern that I have that hearing about different practices, let's say in India or Tanzania, will throw them off, and they're not clear on the cultural basis of those. And so to compare the US to another country that's only 50 years old and doesn't have the institutional frameworks, I get concerned about that, which is why I don't move into that. So I think there has to be some awareness on the part of the faculty member, unless they're going to do a lot more content, deliver a lot more content on those countries with emerging economies, to help students understand why there's those differences.
And we can take a few more comments or questions, but I am keeping an eye on the time because I know some folks need to get to 2 o'clock.
And I interrupted you though.
No, that's good.
Yeah, Pat and then Steve. No?
Just in case you guys are falling asleep. Anyway.
There's one strategy for what you might call co-curricular integration that the whole school could utilize. I know that for seated courses that last for 3 hours, oftentimes faculty take a break in the middle, and developing a set of common PowerPoint slides so that during the break you just put these slides up and it has information on, it's like, did you know that you can take international field placements? Did you know? And it's just sort of in the environment as students are sort of milling in and out during the break, just sort of see it, and it's just a way of just presenting some information in a very casual, informal way. But if every professor is using the same slides every class, then, you'll start to feel
It is actually the School of Management and the School of Law both have plasma screens in various places where they do put information like that. Maybe Nancy would love to.
We have our screens.
They're all over the place, so we could do that.
I don't know that students read those, do they? I have not seen a student read it yet.
If they saw themselves up there and they saw examples of their colleagues in the
what
previous
tricked
experiences,
What did you say?
I said they're usually just clips from the website though, so it's,
You're not attracted,
they just look
potentially.
like the website.
Yeah. Well, that's good feedback.
maybe a student run serious. Yeah.
When they're waiting
get
for
student
the
feedback.
elevators, they look.
Can I just mention one thing? There are all sorts of resources around the university that might help you not expend your limited resources on things that you might want to think about collecting information on before you reinvent the wheel, or if there's actually, there's actually money elsewhere, both for whether it's for the developing curriculum, whether it's for faculty research or student research, or they're in funny little pockets in strange places, but it might be a project to sort of pull all those bits together so that you know what you don't have to pay for.
And
Even student undergraduate and graduate student groups, if they found themselves into a student group, there's actually money attached to being a student group.
I was stunned, they actually get quite large budgets. It might provide that part of that community of your newcomer groups, for example. I don't.
Get it from Dennis Black's office.
Yeah, Student Life does have some,
Yeah.
it does have quite a lot of funding available for all sorts of things, might be worth looking into.
All right, well, these are some good suggestions. As we wrap up for today, I would just remind you to sign in so we can pay for the food and fill out your half sheets so we can get your feedback on how to shape up these sessions. So thank you to our presenters.